David's youngest daughter. My name is Hewell, and I have been given the privilege of introducing you to him. Many of you really know him mostly just as a candidate, as someone who, is fighting for your community. But what I want to introduce you to him as is a mentor, a championer, and of course, my dad. So, because of my dad that I was able to grow up with an open mind, an open heart, and of course, a very strong feeling of independence. So growing up, my dad was always looking for ways to give back to the community. We went to church every single Sunday. He donated not only his money, but also his time. When it came to the kids, it's one of those things where he really found a passion with Pee Wee football, which may not seem like a huge deal, but when it comes to kids, sometimes that's the best, outlet for them. And when it came to how he got started, it was just to, be a coach for my brother. But like I said, he really developed that passion, and he went on to coach new teams every 4 years. Kids that weren't his, kids who, maybe didn't have a lot of opportunities. Now, I will say his commitment was not to the idea of winning. Unfortunately, your record kind of shows that. So but the biggest thing about this is that it was to help the kids have fun, but also helping them learn teamwork and helping them learn self-esteem. It's one of those things where my dad never really talked about it a whole lot. It wasn't something where he bragged or anything, but it was, small bits of conversation. But he put a lot of time into those kids, and he gave them rides to and from practice. I know a very particular situation where it pops in my head where I know he bought cleats for a kid who didn't have the money to do it. He helped them get their gear. So, it was a really big responsibility for him. And he took, and he really showed that responsibility and that passion. From the football fields, he kind of moved to a track and field situation. He became the commissioner of what's called Junior Olympics, and that's for kids who, want to participate in track and field at the ages from 4th grade through 6th grade. And it's one of those things where most people, they would take on that responsibility a year, maybe 2. But my dad did it for at least 4 to 5 years, if not longer. And during this time, he really put time and effort into making it a really great experience for these kids. I have very particular memories of building the obstacle course pieces, in a sense, putting together the MDF, painting everything. I got to play on it, to test it out, make sure it worked right. Yeah. And then, of course, the other thing that really came from this was that it wasn't just about the kids either, with us, his kids. He really taught a lot to my siblings and me about leadership and responsibility. So, for example, my brother was in charge of timers, so he made sure everything was accurate, that we had enough coverage. My sister fed everybody, all the volunteers. I was given the responsibility of wrangling those volunteers, because that was like wrangling cats. But the biggest thing was that, we made sure that we had coverage of all areas, and it wasn't just about, getting, the events going, but it was also, we kind of kept parents off the field because it wasn't just about parents or adults watching the kids win or pushing them to win necessarily. It was about the kids having fun and being able to do it to the best of their ability without anybody interfering, without any issues. And then, of course, one of the biggest things that comes from this for me is that, I have very fond memories of doing Junior Olympics. It's probably one of the things that really shaped me as a young adult. And, I bonded with my family with this, but also, like I said, it instilled those qualities of responsibility and leadership that I still put into place to this day in the things that I do as an adult. So it was a very beneficial experience. But one of the biggest things I like to say is that it's the values that my dad instilled in me that really exemplifies him as a teacher, as a mentor, and as a leader. Because there was never a moment in my childhood or adolescence where my dad gave any inclination or that I couldn't do something. And it wasn't just because I was a girl, because I know that's the campaign these days, but it wasn't just that, it's because he wanted what was best for everybody. He always wanted you to strive for something better. And I think that's part of where I get my drive to always find solutions. Because, you know, I was always encouraged to think outside of the box. And if a plan didn't work, you tweaked it. You figured something else out. You modified your original. The key thing to this was, you don't give up. He also taught me a lot of life lessons of independence, perseverance, and listening to my own mind. This is just from playing soccer as a kid. It's one of those things where, you know, I may joke about it, but in all honesty, you know, spending that extra time after practices, learning how to kick a ball a certain way, to constantly look to improve. You know, it was one of those things where as I matured, he taught me how to, you know, think critically in the moment. You know, do I kick it long and far? Do I dribble and pass? You know, these things, you know, help teach you how to think critically in a fast-paced situation. And the biggest thing is I knew my strength, but I wasn't necessarily scared to, you know when to pull back. So the other big thing I like to point out is that he gave me a very strong sense of right and wrong. And it's my personal endeavor in life to simply live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's from this that I have learned to empathize. To try to understand where a person is coming from. And, you know, it's one of those things where I have the understanding that we all don't come from the same cookie-cutter mold. You know, I was raised to appreciate our differences and to be able to fight for that ability to celebrate our differences. And so, the thing I want to make sure that you guys take away from this introduction is that my dad's desire to serve his community, to serve our family, and to those around him, this isn't something new for him. This is something he has always believed in, and he realized that to be true to himself, he was going to have to continue this path. And so on that note, I'm glad to present to you the man for the Texas 6th District who needs to be our next U.S. Congressman. Sorry. My dad.